Hello everyone, my name is DJ and I'm one of the developers in Team Crea, and today we are going to take a look at 5 things you need to know before starting with Godot 4. These are 5 essential tips, but before we take a look at those, let's take a look at my indie game I just released on Steam. You can head over to Steam, download the demo and try it on your Windows device, Linux device, even Steam Deck or a Mac device. So yeah, head over to Steam, download the demo, and if you like it, buy the full version. But without further ado, let's move on to the 5 things you need to know. So the first step is know the UI. And basically what I mean with this is know everything you can see here, all these areas, and at the top you have the 2D, 3D script and asset lib view. You can switch around by clicking on them, and in the middle you have the scene, what's rendered, and on the left you have the scene view, what kind of items are listed inside the scene. And then the import is for import settings of the file you selected. Down here is the file system. There you can select files, create folders, create scenes, all the stuff like that. Like here, I created a cool folder. That's it. If you select something on the right, you can see the inspector, the node settings, and the history. But most important is inspector and node. And at the top you have like important things like the project settings. Over here you can set some inputs, and if you move down here you can set the default scene. Every project has a default scene. If I run this and don't have a default scene selected, you can just press to select the current default scene. So if we go back into the project settings and run, we can see that the default scene is the current scene I have. And over here in the editor settings, you can turn off the external editor. I set this up before, so when I open a script, we will see this in the Godot editor. Now if I turn it back on and set the correct path to my external editor, then you can see if I open the script, it will open it in my external editor, which is Visual Studio Code for my case. The second thing is add objects to your game. A game is consisting of multiple objects that are rendered in the scene. So if I have a completely empty scene, like in this example, I just have the main scene and it's completely empty, I can press the plus button and just add a node. And there are different kind of nodes. The current one we want to use is the tile map layer node. The other one I picked is deprecated, so we use this one. Here you can, on the right side, if you select the tile map layer, you can create a new tile set, and down here you can set up some settings for the tile set. So I will quickly drop in my tile set I created beforehand, and it was imported into the cool folder because it was selected. And I move it out there, and here I can add the atlas, which is my tile set. And you can also press here yes, and it will automatically select the tiles. So move over to tile map and select the tile you want to use, and don't forget to select the tile map as well at the top left in the scene view, and then select the right tool, which is the mouse cursor at the top left. And now you can draw your tiles in here. Pretty cool, huh? But as of right now, it doesn't have any collisions, so we will switch over to the physics layer here on the right in the inspector when the tile map is selected. And you can select a collision layer which you want this tile to be on, or this tile set to contain, or tile map. If you selected, I for my part selected 1, which I called solid before. Over here, when tile set is selected at the bottom, you can switch over to paint, and here down there's physics layer 0, and you can select a tile on the right side, and either it's automatically filled already, or you press F and add a collision here. You can show them in the scene view on the right side if you select physics and then force show. Now let's add a player character. So press the plus button, add a character body 2D. This is for character movement actually. It's a child node of node 2D, and we also add an animated sprite 2D and also a collision shape, which is needed for every character body 2D to detect collisions, of course. So on the right side I will add a shape. It's a capsule shape in my case, and for the sprite, animated sprites, I will create a new animated sprites, and actually you would see at the bottom animated or sprite frames, but it's not here, so you have to switch to a different node and then select the animated sprite again, and you will see it at the bottom. Now if you take a look here, there we also already have a default state or animation. We can add our sprite sheet, select the frames we want. On the right side you can do some settings like how many frames you have on the horizontal axis and how many you have on the vertical axis. In my case it's 5 and 17, so we select the first 5, which is the idle frame or idle animation of my character. Well, now we can see my character here. I will move it into the correct position. As you can see, the collision is not correctly aligned, so we will move it into the right position and also reduce the size of the capsule shape over here on the right side. As you can see, you can always change the parameters on the right side in the inspector, so you just have to select the object on the left side and you can adjust the parameters on the right. So let's quickly run this and see what happens. You can run this by pressing the play button on the top right, and it looks horrible. So let's add a camera so we can decide what we actually want to see. As you can see, the camera now it's selected, and if we run it again, it's very small. Let's adjust this as well. Over here on the zoom, when selected the camera in the inspector, I set it to 3 times, and it looks a lot better now. So next up is point number 3. How do we actually code in this engine? So up until now we have created some nodes here, but they actually do nothing, have some collisions. So let's rename this actually to player and right click on it and save it as a scene. So we have this as, it's something like a blueprint in Unreal Engine or prefab in Unity. You can create a lot of versions of it based on the scene. Let's delete all of them and move on to the player scene, and this contains the player. So on the bottom right there's a script item. We can create a new one. Select the default settings here and press create, and it will also already set up some default functionality for a player character body, like speed and velocity and stuff like this, and some basic functionality like movement. First thing we do is we add the add export keyword to the variables at the top, and you will see them inside the editor, so we can adjust them accordingly. Next up is we also have to set up the collisions of the player correctly. Currently the player is on the layer 1, which is solid. This is only for walls. The second one is player. I called it player before. For you it's probably layer 1. You can right click on it and rename it. So what we want to do next is interact a little bit with the sprite, and for this we go here, right click on it, copy the node path, and inside the code we can write add on ready variable and then a name, which is sprite in my case, and then equals $, and then the node path based on the object, like relative to the root object, in this case the player. It's one layer below it, so animated sprite 2D. If you do that, you can use this object inside the code. You have a reference to it. The onReady caches this object when it's ready, and yeah, you can write a new function like face right and set the scale of the sprite to 1, and on face left you set it to -1. So the only thing left to do is inside the already existing code, we want to check if direction is bigger than or greater than 0, it's going to face right, and if it's lower than 0, it's going to face, so else if is elif. If direction is lower than 0, it's going to face left. Yeah, and this semicolons, you might not need them. I am used to it, so I add them sometimes, and sometimes I don't. For consistency, I just remove them here. And yeah, as you have the values here, you can start the game and it will move. Currently it's a bit too fast, so luckily we exported the values for speed. We can reduce that a little bit, to 100 for instance here, and 200 for jump velocity, and yeah, it's going to be a lot more controllable now. Yeah, the spacebar jumps right now. Yeah, another thing that's missing a bit and we can easily add is a run animation. So for this we press on the plus icon on the top left here in the animation section. Yeah, call it run, and then select the sprite, the run sprites here, as we did before for the idle animation. And if we press play, we can see it running. And over here you can also increase the FPS. And the default one is not playing automatically, so we will press the icon here, and then it will automatically play as well. And as you can see, the animations are not working, or it's not going to switch to the run animation. So to get this, we also need the sprite again. Over here we can check if the direction is bigger or anything else than 0. We will play the run animation, and on the else we can play the default animation, because then he is not running. And let's quickly hit play and see what we did. Oh, and it looks great if you ask me. We already have some cool looking animations in game. Yeah, now let's get used to a bit more drawing here. We select the tile map layer again and start drawing something that looks like a stage with a gap here and there, and with the right click you can also remove tiles, and yeah, we draw some platforms. I think what might also be very handy is some switch functionality, because it contains some kind of collision and interaction. So for this we create an area 2D, we call it switch, and inside a switch you always need a collision shape like we did for the player. The collision shape, we also have to create a shape for it. I do a rectangle here, and I move the switch over here to the right. So if the player touches this, then something happens. For now, something is some kind of particle effect. I selected the CPU particles first, which is not the good one. The GPU particles is the better option for people that have a GPU. Next up, you can select the particle material on the right in the inspector, and you can see there's some default particles already set up. I think that's enough for us for now. And I move it to a different position. Press emitting off, so we want to turn this on when the player touches it. And turn it back off when the player leaves the area. So create a new script for this, press create, and it automatically sets everything up for you. The ready function is actually everything we need. Here we can connect to one of the signals of the area 2D, which is body entered, and on body entered we want to call the function on body entered, which I have to define in this script. So we enter the on body entered function, and it wants an input, which is body. This is the body that entered this area. So what we want to do is turn on and off, turn the particle system on and off. For this we have to set another onReady at the top. We call it particles, and as we did it before with the sprite, we have to select the particle node inside this switch, and reference it like this. We also have to call this correctly, like particles, and everything after the dollar has to match what the node is named. Now down here you can set particles, point emitting, and then set it to true when the body is entered. And we copy this, do a body exited, and on exited we want to turn it off, so we have to set it to false. But we also have to connect to this event, so at the top, like we did it with entered, you have to select body exited and call the correct function, and emitting has to be false in that case. So let's hit play and see what happens when we move over to the right, and you can see nothing happens, and the reason for this is actually that we messed up the collisions a little bit, as you might have guessed. So select the switch, move over to the collisions section, and here you can turn off the solid, and for the mask we want to collide only with the player. And now if we move over, you can see the particles are emitting. So over here for the player, the node tab, you can also add a group. I will show you that as well. We call this group Cool Dude, and the player is a cool dude, so he's in the group Cool Dude. And now here in the script for the switch, you can check if the body is in the group Cool Dude, then do something. So in my case I just wrote if he's a cool dude, then do the emitting true, or do it turn it into false. So if you see, if I turn off the group and I try to collide with it, it does not trigger, or it does trigger but it skips the emitting true. And if we have the cool dude group enabled, then the emitting will work again. So the next big topic is to add UI, and how do we do that in Godot? For this we will use the power of the control nodes. But there are two different ways of adding a UI to your game. The first one is adding them to a canvas layer. The canvas layer is basically one screen, and everything you add there, you can add it relative to your screen width and height. So let's add a control node and set the control node's anchor points to full screen. So right now here looks a bit weird, but in the game, when you run the game, it will orient the view to the camera. So let's add a button. On the button you can select the anchor point to be at the top in the middle, move it a little bit down, and then you have a button always in the middle, top center. So let's add a little label inside, like a spawn button. We will use this later to add or spawn player objects, and over there in the top you can see the button. Now let's move the camera inside the player so it moves with the player, and you can see if we move around, the button will always stay in the middle top area. The other option is to add the control node relative to the player or to any node inside the game. For this we add the control node just to the object. In my case I want to add a health bar or something like that above the player head. For this we select the control node for progress bar, which is inside the range sub node. It's called progress bar, and here we can select it and add it to the player. Move it into the right position, and you will have it always relative to the player. On the right side you can also change the value, like let's say to 100, and you will see 100%. Let's quickly hit play and see what we did right now. And you can see the progress bar is relative to the player and the button is always relative to the view. But for now, let's forget about this progress bar and move back to the UI. We will create a new script for this UI. And what we want to do is when anyone presses the button, the spawn button, we want to spawn a player into the game. But this time we will connect the pressed signal by the UI. So on the right in the node on the signals, we will select the pressed signal and then select the UI. We want to trigger the event here. And now you can see the function is already created for us, and we will add a print to log something into the console. And now if you check, when we press the button, you will see in the console, in the output console, spawn a player. So on button pressed, we will load the player scene from our files. For this we use the load function, select the relative root to the project. It's saved inside the player scene, and now we want to add it to the current scene. For this we will use the getTree function and then the current C parameter to get the current scene and add the child player scene, which is actually wrong because we first have to do an instance. This scene is just a packed scene. So let's create an instance of player scene. As you can see here, my code completion wasn't working correctly, but we create an instance of player scene and save it inside the new variable new player, and then we can add it to the current scene with add child. But what I also wanted to do is to set the global position to a slightly different value based on some random values. For this I typecast the instantiated object to player character body 2D, and we will get some correct code completion, and we will set the global position to a random, for the x value, a random value between -8 and +8, and the y value can be 0. And every time we press the spawn button, it will now create a new player at a random position between 8 and -8. And the cool thing is, when we move around, all of them will move. And the final tip is the autoloads. Make good use of the autoloads. And what is an autoload? An autoload is some script that is loaded automatically. I think in other programming languages it's called a singleton. And for this we create a new script actually. I call it the stage controller, and this one will handle loading new stages and also unloading old ones. After the script is created, you can move over to the project settings. Inside globals there is an auto load section. You can load your script, give it a name which is automatically like the script, and press the add button. And now you have an auto-loaded stage controller script. We will try it out by adding a print inside the ready function, and you will see that it's loaded with the main. It's loaded before the main even. So it's a singleton that's existing somewhere, and you can use it everywhere, like some static functions. So the reason we do this is to improve the organization of our code. We want to have a node inside the main scene which is containing the current loaded stage, and everything we have inside the stage should be in that loaded stage. Right now it's all of them is loaded inside the main scene, but we don't want this. This is going to end up in chaos, so remove everything inside the main and add a new stage node and create a new scene which will be loaded inside the stage container, which will contain everything that's needed for stage 1. So we call this new scene stage 1. We paste everything we have in here. Yeah, and what we want to do now is we will add a load stage 1 function inside the stage controller, which will load stage 1. Yeah, so first of all, on ready we will preload actually the stage data, which for which we use the onReady keyword and the preload function. Yeah, and enter the path of the stage 1 we just created. And inside here we can add a function for load stage 1. This is useful because later we can also add load stage 2 and load stage 3. We can also do this later with parameters, but for now these are some specific functions for the stages. But this can all be done very flexible. So like we did before, we will get the tree, the current scene, and add a child, which is stage 1. So actually we don't want to add stage 1, we want to add an instantiated version of it. So for this we want to cache it as well to know which scene is or stage is loaded currently. We create a local variable which is called current stage. It's null at the beginning, and when it's loaded, when stage 1 is loaded, we will set the current stage to an instantiated version of stage 1. Remember, the stage 1 is a packed scene and we need to instantiate it first and then add it to the current scene. As you can see here, we will also add an unload current stage function, which will check if there is any current stage, then get the parent of the current stage and remove the child, which is the current stage, of course. It's like saying, hey dad, remove me. Here I fiddled around a little bit. So if current stage is available, then return, which is wrong. We need to check if current stage is not available, then return. But as you can see here, I'm jumping around a little bit. And yeah, in the end, I think I corrected this. And we also need to improve this a little bit because we don't want to add it to the current scene. We actually want to add it to the node container, the stage node container we created before. Yeah, and let's move over to the engine and hit play and see what happens. And as we see, nothing happens because nothing is loaded. We also need to add or call the function, and this is the cool thing about Autoloads. We can get the stage controller here and call the function load stage 1, and it will trigger the loading. And as you can see here, we have some issues with the code I will correctly fix. And I finally found it. It was the current stage was not negated, so only if a current stage is not existing, then return. So when we load the game, we will see the stage controller is correctly loading the first stage. So let's add the loading function for stage 2. So for this, it's just some copy paste. It's going to mark it as an error because we don't have stage 2 yet. So we duplicate this with Control D. Yeah, I quickly did the second stage. I don't want it to waste your time, so I will speed this up a little bit. As you can see here, I accidentally also edited stage 1, so I also had to rename those two scenes, and in the end we had stage 1 and stage 2 ready to be loaded, and now we will add the function for it. So as you can see over here, if we press save here, the error will vanish. And yeah. Next up, I will add into the switch. If the player touches it, you will switch to the stage 2. For this, we can just call the stage 2 function of stage controller. As of right now, we don't have this function, so I will move over to the stage controller and copy this load stage 1 function and call it stage 2 and change all the 1s to 2s, and it will correctly load the stage 2, and it will also unload stage 1 if it is already loaded, which will be the case because that's the only way to get to stage 2 right now. So I will quickly add a print statement here to show you that unload old stage will be called. So quickly press play and you will see stage 1 is loaded. You touch the switch and stage 2 will be loaded. And as you can see over to the left, unload old stage will be called once. And we also have some errors here, which I am quickly going to fix. So as you can see here, we had some errors. It's because we called a function that's doing some unsafe things like reloading or unloading stages in the middle of a frame. In this case, we use the call deferred function. We tell him which function we want to call deferred, which will be called in an idle frame. And in this case, it's safer to unload the current stage and yeah, load the new one. And you can see the errors are gone. And these were the 5 things I think you should know about Godot before starting. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, of course. And if there's anything more you want to know, just write it into the comments and we might make a video about that. So until the next time, see you.